Hello, my name's Taj Berry, and I'm a biology or cell biology major. And my video podcast is about the state of scientific research in China. And most of this is in reference to like biological research. A lot of it's genetic research, along with health research, because that's kind of what I'm more focused on with my major. The history and research of the history of research in China goes back very far, and is long and rich with, or China is long and rich with uh, scientific and technological contributions, independent of Greek philosophers and other civilizations. Ancient Chinese philosophers made significant significant advances in science, technology, mathematics, and astronomy. The first recorded observation of comets, solar solar eclipses, and supernovae were made in China, along with traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and herbal medicine were also practiced in China long before other civilizations used some of these techniques. And one thing to note as well is at the times that these remedies and forms of scientific um, advancements were made, a lot of the European European countries collaborated with one another to make a lot of their scientific advances. So it's even more astounding that China kind of did these things on their own. And one of the oldest and long-standing contributions of the ancient Chinese are in traditional Chinese medicine, including acupuncture and herbal medicine, like mentioned before, derived from Taoist philosophy. According to archaeological findings, the first writings on medicine appeared between the 11th century and 3rd century BCE, like the Wu Shi Bing Fang, prescriptions for 52 diseases found in a tomb excavated in 1973 near Mawangdui. And excuse me for my poor pronunciation, and I'm also very sick right now. China was also known for developing gunpowder, printing, papermaking, and the compass, which were monumental inventions at the time. It was highly debated excuse me, whether China had a scientific revolution due to the lack of evidence supporting the fact that they did, and the fact that they were far behind Europe in the scientific development around the time that Europe had their own revolution, which was around the 17th and 18th century for Europe. And from what history kind of says, is China did a lot of their development earlier on. Uh, if we're looking from now 2,000 years back, China did a lot of their development early on and kind of stalled throughout the Middle Ages, while the European countries kind of did most of their development during the Middle Ages, which is it's interesting to look at. The current state of research in China, it's difficult to share data even domestically, such as trying to process data banks in different provinces with separate jurisdiction. Furthermore, many smaller institutions don't have the proper infrastructure to curate, identify, and store genetic material in a way that makes it usable for scientific research. And what that's saying basically is an easy way to compare it is let's say Pennsylvania wanted to access genetic data from from Virginia, but our our government, the U.S. the national government, wouldn't allow PA to access this information from Virginia due to like its own or not personal, but due to its own um, privacy reasons and just overbearingness when it comes to genetic information. Running a biobank costs lots of money, and not being able to use the data or material that's been collected is a waste of resource. There have also been long-standing concerns from the international community about China's use of genetic data in policing, especially after reports that authorities were collecting DNA samples and other biometric data from millions of residents in the far west region of Xinjiang, home to the Muslim Uyghur community and and other ethnic minorities. China has faced accusations of human rights violation in Xinjiang, which is repeatedly denied. And this relates to um, another kind of current event, even though this has been going on for about 3 or 4 years, or it's been in the spotlight for the past 3 or 4 years now, is um, China's China's government's mistreatment of the Uyghur Muslim people, and just the sheer like negligence that they've had towards the brutality towards the Uyghur people. And apparently they're also um, maybe using genetic data for their policing, for these groups of people, possibly maybe for identification of these people, so they can brutalize them. And this first one, this is a quote right here. Um, the government has always had the intentions to have better visibility over genetic pedigrees and important genetic resources concerning minority races, said Wang. Um, DNA has been seen as increasingly more and more valuable, so the Chinese government has been more and more keen on protecting their people's genes. And with that, um, one thing you could you one thing to think about with that is if about how maybe you could kind of question maybe why China's government is so keen towards having visibility over genetic resources concerning minority races opposed to their majorities. That's just something you can think about, but um, China has another motive as well, establishing what some experts call genomics sovereignty, meaning full control of the genetic material within their country. While many other countries also have laws regulating the use and transfer of their population's genetic material, few are as strict as China's. China seems to have adopted the exact opposite approach. China is closing things down and wants to keep everything domestic and looking inward. CNN has reached out to the Ministry of Science and Technology for a comment on these data sharing concerns. This could have broader implications for scientists' ability to work with international peers with US China collaborations already plummeting thanks to worsening political tensions and Chinese researchers' isolation during the COVID-19 pandemic. All this could likely or ultimately hinder China's own hopes to break boundaries and rise above the competition. And these are some of the regulations imposed by the CCP. Chinese life science is a major power in the world, but is not yet a superpower in a cutting edge areas. It still relies on international collaboration. Scientific advancement today looks very different from just a few decades ago. Nowadays, we're talking about big data. Um, we're talking about mining the data. In this context, restricting access will only be harmful to China. Recently introduced restrictions on the flow of academic and health data from China are concerning researchers globally who say the new rule, as well as the uncertainty around them, are discouraging international collaborations with scientists in the country. Others fearing that access to information could be stymied are sorry are opting to not work on projects with China or its people. The suite of regulations which have been introduced gradually since 2021, including cybersecurity assessments of personal information and the genetic data sent overseas, and restrictions on the export of biotechnology know-how and CRISPR, CAS9 gene editing technology, synthetic biology, and crop breeding. China is also considering limits sorry, on the amount of human genetic data that can be sent to other countries. The signal has been very clear that China does not want its other scientists to collaborate freely as they used to with foreigners, says Joy Zhang, a sociologist at the University of Kent in the UK. Chinese companies and universities planning to export data must either apply for a certifications starting in June, have a contract or starting in June, have a contract with the receiving organization that guarantees the data will be stored appropriately and processed as only specified in the contract. And I wanted to make a point about this right here, where it says restricting access will only be harmful to China. I kind of, when I read that, I sort of thought about how like xenophobia towards Chinese people has been on a rise since COVID started, and some of these issues like this, with who are people who are more aware, um, like this isn't a topic that like every American would have a good grasp on, but some of the people that pay more attention to a lot of like finer details, they could see China's government and Chinese scientists like basically hiding away all this data and almost grow some sort of resentment towards them and like not want to collaborate with them even if they had the opportunity to, just due to the fact that they're Chinese blanks, they're Chinese scientists, they're Chinese government employees. So I don't know. Do with that as you will, but that's just kind of what I thought of when I originally read that. But yep, this is the conclusion of my presentation.